Why do you hate our daughter this much? What has she done to deserve this hatred? Gina said with a broken heart. Mr. Thomas replied, since the day she was born, our lives turned upside down, and everything I built from scratch are gone. Mr. Richards voiced out in anger. You are welcome to Informal African Tales. Please share and subscribe. This was the home of Mr. Richard Thomas and Mrs. Gina Thomas, a couple admired, envied, and sometimes quietly resented. The compound was paved with interlocking stones that never ceased to gather dust, no matter how many cars drove across them. Richard Thomas was a man of influence, a successful businessman who owned one of the largest plastic warehouses in the city. His name carried weight in both business circles and social gatherings. He was known for his sharp suits, polished shoes, and a voice that commanded authority. Gina Thomas, his wife, was elegance personified. She moved with the grace of someone who had never known hardship. Her skin glowed with the softness of expensive skincare. Her hair always perfectly styled. Her clothes always imported. Together, they have 3 children. Amanda, their first daughter, calm and observant. Chidwin, the first son, bold and outspoken. And Sonto, the youngest boy, playful and full of laughter. Each child had their own spacious rooms, decorated to their personal tastes. Their home echoed with comfort, luxury, and order. Every festive season, the Thomas family traveled abroad, most especially to the United States. It had become a tradition, almost a statement. They would live in style and return with stories. Accents slightly polished and suitcase filled with expensive goods. In the estates, people whisper among themselves. They live like royalty. Their children don't even know what suffering looks like. God when. But admiration often was hand in hand with silent judgment. And pride was quietly building its throne. It was after one of their usual trips to the United States that something began to change. Gina felt it first, a strange heaviness, a subtle tiredness in her body that something new had begun. She visited the hospital one bright morning, dressed in a flowing designer gown. Her sunglasses shielded her eyes from the curious stares of others in the waiting room. She sat gracefully, tapping her manicured fingers against her handbag. When her name was called, she rose with confidence. Minutes later, she sat across from the doctor, her heart beating slightly faster than usual. Congratulations, Mrs. Thomas, the doctor said with a warm smile. You were 1 month pregnant. For a moment, Gina couldn't believe it. Then her face broke into a radiant smile. Another child, another blessing, another opportunity to maintain her image. She left the hospital glowing, always planning. Every week, she visited the most popular salon on the estate, a place owned by Madam Naomi, a woman known for her sharp tongue and sharper observation. The salon buzzed with chatter, gossip, and the hum of hair dryers. On this particular day, Gina sat like a queen on her throne, her hair being handled by Abiola, a young apprentice still learning the ropes. I gave birth to all my children in the United States, Gina announced loudly, ensuring everyone could hear. And this one will be no different. The women exchanged glances. Some nodded, some smiled politely. Others rolled their eyes when she wasn't looking. As Abiola combed her hair, her hands trembled slightly. The comb caught a knot. Gina winced sharply. Ouch! Are you trying to remove my scalp? She snapped, her voice cutting through the room. I am sorry, ma, Abiola stammered. Be careful, you silly girl. Do you know how much this hair costs? The room fell silent. Madam Naomi stepped forward, her lips coiling into a faint smile. Madam Gina, we are all looking forward to your next American baby, she said playfully. I hope we are invited to the naming ceremony. Gina lifted her chin. Oh, it will be strictly by invitation. I don't want silly dirty people to be walking around in my compound. The room erupted in soft laughter. But inside the laughter was something else, resentment. The sun rose gently, casting a warm glow over the Thomas residence. Breakfast was served, toasts, eggs, tea, fruits arranged neatly on the table. The family sat together, something they rarely do. The conversation turned to the unborn child. "I think it's a girl," Amanda said confidently. "No, it's a boy," Chidwi argued. Some too laughed. "Another brother would be fun." Gina smiled, placing a hand on her belly. Then suddenly a sharp pain. Her smile faded. Another pain followed, stronger this time. She gripped the table. "Richard, it's time." Panic filled the room. Richard stood up immediately, reaching for his phone. "Send the driver now," Gina said urgently. "We need to go to the airport." But Richard hesitated. "No," he said firmly. "You will give birth here." Gina stared at him in disbelief. "What do you mean by that?" But Richard's face has changed. Behind his smile was fear, unspoken fear. At that very moment, his phone buzzed. His warehouse was on fire. The hospital was not what Gina was used to. No polished marble floors, no luxury suites, no foreign nurses with soft accents, just reality. Pain tore through her body as labor intensified. Hours passed like seconds and seconds stretched like hours. Then finally, a beautiful cry, a beautiful piercing cry. "Is a girl," the nurse announced. Gina held her baby, tears streaming down her face. "She's perfect. She's beautiful. See her soft skin. Oh my God, I love you, baby girl." They named her Chikanso, God follows me. But not everyone saw her as a blessing. Richard stood at a distance staring at the child. His face was cold. Since the day Chikanso was born, everything had changed. His warehouse was gone. His business collapsed. Money stopped flowing. And in his mind, the child was the cause. "She brought misfortune," he said one night. Gina cried. "How can you say something like that about your own child? Since she came, everything has fallen apart." Gina held her baby tighter, her heart breaking. From that moment, the house of gold began to crumble. Gina held the baby tighter, her heart breaking. From that moment, the house of gold began to crumble. The expensive cars were sold. The trips stopped. The luxury faded. They began to live hand to mouth. Neighbors whispered louder now. "See them, pride goes before the fall." Pride is too much. They thought they were better than everyone. At the salon, the gossip was relentless. "Madam America, how far? I hope you are traveling soon. Or is Nigeria now okay?" Laughter filled the room. This time, Gina had nothing to say. One evening, Gina sat alone staring at her children. Amanda had grown quiet. The boys no longer laughed as freely. And little Chikamso. She smiled innocently, unaware of the blame placed on her tiny shoulders. Gina broke down. It wasn't the child. It was never the child. It was pride. The pride that blinded them. The pride that made them look down on others. The pride that made them forget humility. She turned to Richard. "We did this," she said softly, not her. Richard looked at his daughter for the first time. Truly looked. And something shifted. It wasn't easy. Starting over never is. But slowly things began to change. Richard took smaller jobs. Gina became more humble, even returning to the salon not as a queen, but as a woman among women. She apologized to Abiola. She laughed with Madam Naomi. She listened, and for the first time, she learned. After some time, the Thomas family was no longer the richest on the estate, but they were something else. They were kinder, closer, and stronger. And little Chikanso, the child once blamed for everything, became the light of the family. A constant reminder that blessing doesn't always come wrapped in comfort. Sometimes they come wrapped in lesson. The one bustling Thomas household was no longer filled with the noise of luxury, but something softer had taken its place, something real, laughter and joy. Not the loud, boastful kind that once echoed through their walls, but a gentle, sincere laughter that came from within. And at the center of it all was Chikanso. She had grown into a radiant little girl, her eyes bright with curiosity, her laughter contagious, Wherever she went, she carried a strange warmth, like sunlight breaking through a cloudless sky. Richard often found himself watching her from a distance. At first, it was hesitation, then curiosity, and finally something deeper with love. One evening, as the family gathered in the living room, now simpler, quieter, Chikanso ran towards him, her tiny feet tapping against the tiled floor. "Daddy, Daddy," she called, her voice sweet and full of life. Richard felt a deep pain in his chest. For a moment, the past flashed before him. The harsh words, the blame, the distance he has created between himself and this innocent child. But she didn't hesitate. She climbed onto his lap, wrapping her small arms around his neck, as if she had never been rejected, as if she had always been loved. Something broke inside him. A wall he had built with pride, pain, and misunderstanding shattered. He held her tightly. And for the first time, tears filled his eyes. "My lovely daughter, I love you so much." That night, Richard could not sleep. He sat alone in the dimly lit living room, staring into the silence. His voice echoed in his mind. Daddy. How many times had he ignored her? How many times had he looked at her with coldness? How many times had he blamed her for things beyond her control? He covered his face with his hands. "I was wrong," he whispered. The realization was heavy, heavier than any financial loss he had ever experienced. Because money could be regained, but lost time, lost love, those were wounds that took longer to heal. Gina stepped into the room quietly, watching him. "I blamed an innocent child," he said, his voice breaking. "My own daughter, my lovely daughter." Gina walked closer. "And now you know the truth," he nodded slowly. "She didn't bring darkness, she brought light. I was just too blind to see it." From that day forward, Richard changed, not in words, not in action. He began with the little things, walking Chikanso to school, carrying her on his shoulders, listening to her stories even when they made no sense. Buying her small gifts, not expensive ones, but meaningful ones. He would sit with her in the evenings, helping her with her drawings, laughing when she colored outside the lines. "You are the best, Daddy," she would say, her face glowing. Each time she said it, his heart tightened, because he knew he did not always be. But now he was determined to be. One Sunday afternoon, the family sat together under the shade of a tree in their compound. The air was calm. The world felt peaceful. Chikanso ran around, playing with her brothers, while Amada watched over her. Richard turned to Gina. "I used to think love was about providing everything. Money, comfort, luxury," he said. Gina listened quietly. "But I was wrong. Love is being present, being kind, being humble." Gina smiled softly. "And loving without conditions." Richard nodded. He looked at Chikanso again. She tripped while running and fell to the ground. Before anyone could react, he rushed to her. "Are you okay?" he asked, lifting her gently. She giggled. "I am fine, Daddy." He held her close, brushing the dust off her dress. At that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the lost wealth, not the past mistake, only this love. Pure, unconditional, real. The Chalmers family became something different. No longer a tale of wealth and pride, but a story of growth, humility, redemption. People in the estate still talk about them, but now with respect of a different kind. They changed. They became better than yesterday. And at the center of that transformation, with a little girl was blamed for everything, Chikanso. The child who brought light into darkness. The child who taught her father the true meaning of love. That love is the key to success. Love is the key to everything in life. Thank you for watching Ifoma African Tales.